Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning. Maybe, of course, this is the Thursday edition of the nation's most revered breakfast show. Now, Donald Trump has secured more than the 270 Electoral College votes required to secure the presidency in the United States of America. Carolyn Presutti, Voice of America's senior Washington correspondent, speaks to us all the way from Florida for her take on what transpired in her country. Good morning, Caroline, or good evening to you. How are you doing?
And good morning to you, and it is good evening here in West Palm Beach, Florida. You're correct. I am about 1 kilometer away from Mar-a-Lago, and that is where President-elect Donald Trump and his wife, former First Lady, I guess you could say First Lady-elect Melania Trump live. And last night, on election night, I was with them at the convention center, which was a huge celebration. It didn't start out that way, because it was more an election watch party, but certainly the 500 who attended expected it to end jubilant, and they certainly were, and they partied the night away, danced a lot. Nobody wanted to leave that convention center at the end of the evening after Donald Trump spoke to his supporters.
Very well. Did the first couple elect also dance the night away?
They did not. No, they stood on the stage. It was backed by, I'd say probably maybe 30 American flags and then an enormous American flag at the top. And they must have had about 40 family members on the stage with them. The president-elect spoke. His vice president, J.D. Vance, called it the greatest political comeback in history. A couple other people spoke. But basically, it was a speech by Donald Trump, very unlike his campaign rallies, his campaign speeches. It was more appreciative. It was more looking forward. He called for unity in this country. He said, let's put away our differences from the past 4 years and let's move together, let's heal. So that is certainly what this country needs. Today, he worked on his transition team. He was receiving congratulatory calls from foreign leaders around the world. Volodymyr Zelensky, Benjamin Netanyahu, who also said it was the greatest comeback in history to President-elect Trump. He received the call from French President Emmanuel Macron. So all these are pouring in from Arab leaders too. And he also took a lot of calls from people who frankly want jobs in his administration. And that's what they're trying to put together with the transition team. They will start to hire people to be in President-elect Trump's cabinet, and they will also hire a lot of civil servants to work in the government.
Thank you, Carolyn. Now, let's take a few steps back. What do you believe are the primary factors that contributed to, that culminated in Donald Trump's victory?
I spoke to a lot of voters at the Donald Trump rallies, and the number one issue on their mind, immigration. And Donald Trump is very firm on immigration. He has called the system broken during the Biden administration. So he has said he will fix it. And the way that he plans on fixing that is with mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. So that is the first thing on his agenda. The second thing on his agenda is the economy. That concerns a lot of voters that I spoke to as well. They say the cost of bread, the cost of eggs, the cost of a house, everything needs to come down. And he says that he will do that. He will impose tariffs, especially on China, at 60%, up to 60% on tariffs. Some, though, say that that will increase inflation. He will also trumpet the idea of America first. He said, we want to get away from imports and make things in this country. That was also a theme in his first administration when he was the 45th president of this country. So I would say those were the big themes. Those are what popped him ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris. You know, she was named the immigration czar during her years in the administration. And Donald Trump was very critical of those years and said that we had an open border and let more people in instead of regulating. He said last night in his speech, we don't want to stop immigration. We just want to make sure that people are coming in legally. So for some people in this country, they're all for that. He has also accused undocumented immigrants of being criminals. He's talked of, quote, migrant gangs, and he has he has talked to his constituents about that and says that he'll put a stop to that as well.
How do you believe the planned mass deportations will be received by the international community?
I don't think well. I think that it really scares a lot of people in this country, too. Many people have been here years. And especially when you talk about the dreamers, that is what we call the minors that were brought to this country by undocumented immigrants. And there have been many attempts to keep them here, and they have been here up to 20 some years in some cases. So they really do call the United States home, but they've never had a definite plan for staying here. And I don't mean plan, I mean more like something that Congress has put through to say that they can stay here for life. It's always been up and down for them. They're protected, then they're not protected. And so we're not really sure what he will decide with the dreamers either. So it's very unsettling, I would imagine, for a lot of people in this country, whether they have family members who are here, who want to come here. And basically the word is from the Trump administration, you can come here legally, but not if you don't come through the right path.
Indeed for some, yes. Do you believe there were some regional or demographic shifts, particularly over the last 4 years, that contributed to President-elect Trump's victory?
Absolutely. If you looked at the polls, now I'm not saying that you should put 100% in polls, because lately for our last few presidential elections, they have been wrong. And certainly they were wrong in this case. They were predicting a razor-thin margin of victory between Harris and Trump. That didn't prove to be true. In fact, if you look at the swing states, those are 6 different states in this country that could have gone either way. And these candidates were actively campaigning in those states. I mean, Kamala Harris was in 5 different cities in Pennsylvania, the key to the swing states, with 19 electoral votes. She was in 5 cities the day before the election. Trump was in Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania the day before the election. What happened in that state? Trump actually flipped it. Joe Biden flipped it in 2020. Trump flipped it back. So you not only saw that in Pennsylvania, but you also saw it in Wisconsin. You saw it in Michigan, and you saw it in North Carolina, that the state turned back to the Republicans, what we say turned red. So those are the demographics in those states that are now Republican. And that was seen in several states around the country, including these all important swing states. Also, you have demographics like here in Florida, a lot of retirees. Retirees typically vote conservative, right? And these parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party, tend to put people in boxes saying that this demographic is going to vote this way. This demographic is going to vote this way. And when you look at the figures from last night, they didn't necessarily vote this way. So the parties are going to have to look at Americans as individuals now, and more or less not part of a group that is traditional or predictable in their votes, because they proved last night that they certainly aren't. Florida, by the way, did go red. I mean, it did go for Trump, but just here in Palm Beach County, Democrat, it went for Harris. And this is where Donald Trump lives.
Is it your conviction that the outcome proved once again that America is still not ready for a female president?
Ooh, well, that's a tough question, really. If you look at the figures, if you look at the voters, it shows that Kamala Harris didn't get the amount of female voters that everyone predicted that she would get. Again, a group of people that didn't necessarily vote that way. Now, I can tell you, in 2016, I was at the Javits Center in New York City with Hillary Clinton on election night. And you could just feel the air come out of that room when the results started appearing on the jumbotrons, because remember, she was predicted to win, but instead Donald Trump won. So I think it was a repeat of that last night in Washington, D.C. at Howard University when the results were announced. However, in 8 years, you would think that America would advance, that America would be more ready for a female leader. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the wrong female leader. Maybe we have to appeal differently. I don't know. But that's certainly something that the analysts we'll take a look at not only next week, next month, but probably next year too.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your take on what transpired in your country, and best of luck to you and your fellow Americans.
Thank you. My pleasure.
There you have it, Madam Carolyn Presutti, Voice of America Senior Washington Correspondent, speaking to us all the way from Florida about her take on what transpired in the United States of America. President-elect Donald Trump, of course, will be sworn in as the 47th president of that country in January 2025. Good morning.